K-State Culturally is virtual programming centered on celebrating, uplifting, and educating the Wildcat community through the lens of communities of color connected or affiliated with Kansas State University.
Awesome. So I will go ahead and get started. Welcome to our conversation. I'm super excited to have this conversation surrounding the importance or really the thoughts behind data pulling, data mining, data storytelling. That could be anything within that social space, the collegiate space, the business world. But before we dive into any of that, just a quick introduction. My name is Adonis Wooten-Herron. I am a December 2016 graduate of Kansas State University, and I'm joined by some of the geniuses in the field when it comes to data, whether that's data management, data mining, data storytelling, both Janine and Crystal. So I'll toss it over to Janine to tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been doing this in the market.
I have been employed by the Alumni Association for 33 years. So I've been doing it for a long time. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. I am Jeanine Lake, Senior Director of Information Services at the Alumni Association. At the Alumni Association, we are responsible for maintaining the database for the university. So our client is the entire university. We track all biographical information for the university's use, the colleges use it, departments, clubs, excuse me, and the foundation. We have over about 400,000 records on our database. We're 93% addressable, so we take pride in that. We're one of the best among our peers. And all of that, all of my work is a lot easier because of my assistant, Crystal, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Good morning, I'm Crystal Danker. I'm the Associate Director of Information Management. I've been with the Alumni Association for 24 years. I'm responsible for a lot of the data mining. I do a lot of the looking through the files, making sure everything's accurate, helping prep the files so that we can deliver them out to the entities that are requesting them. Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. So kind of to take a pivot, I know the importance of data, right? And data often has a stigma to not be like that sexy piece, right? People want to see that front facing, they want to see the end results, they want to see the presentations, the story behind it, but they don't really see that data as sexy. So I guess I want to start our conversation with saying, from your perspective, at the base, why does data matter? Like, why should we be concerned with data? What is the importance of data? And really, what is the pipeline of that? What are we able to do because we have access to data?
At K-State, of course, we are in a unique position. Our audience is very defined. So we are tracking data on graduates and donors to the university. So that makes our constituency very well defined. How it's used, though, is kind of why it matters. The Alumni Association has a very successful membership program. We are one of the best in the Big 12 because of the data that we have kept on people. We're able to reach people. Our solicitations are very successful. Our retention rate is high because we always know where our members are. And if we step out a little bit farther, you hear about the KSU Foundation. They're the money raisers for the university. They're the backbone of keeping us financially sound. And they were just able to complete a $1.4 billion campaign. Again, because we know where our constituents are. When we send that email out, we know it's getting there. When we send a mail piece out, we know it's getting delivered. Our data is also used university-wide as far as applying for grants. People are, asking us to provide them with data for their grant applications to help accreditation for some of the schools. So again, without that data, you would see not such a successful university, I guess. I truly feel that way, that the accuracy of our data does make the entire university more successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I kind of want to take a step there and pull some of that information that you provided, because there's often a stigma behind how we retrieve data, how we get data, and access.
We just lost you. Okay, yep.
Okay, cool. Yep, so these AirPods, I tell you. Sorry, Jess. But going back, people are often concerned with where we're grabbing data, how we're pulling that data, and the retention of that within this space. So can you maybe talk to a little bit of that stigma behind data pulling, and how do we create a space of, or that commonality to say, this is safe to pull data, this is safe to consume data, we need this to continue to move forward? Why are people so afraid of that?
You know, we don't really notice a stigma here at K-State. Mainly, I think it's because of our privacy issues. We make it clear from day one that the information you're giving us is protected. It's only used to promote the university. We start getting data when you enter K-State, when you enroll. The registrar starts tracking that, admissions starts tracking that. And then when you graduate, those records come over to us, and then we start tracking information. And I'll let Crystal kind of explain how she data mines and how she reaches out to people to encourage them to keep giving us updated information.
Yeah, so when we do mine the information, we use some different resources. Of course, our most efficient, accurate, best one is face-to-face or voice-to-voice. We do a lot of calling in the evenings and during the day, just contacting people directly. That's the best, most accurate way to get the information. We have a link on our website to update the information, and we always encourage anyone who has moved or relocated to definitely do that as soon as possible. That way we can guarantee that the information that we have is most accurate. We also use some university resources and contacts, and maybe have university dignitaries or department heads reach out to their grads as well. And so, yeah, that's usually the easiest way to do it.
Perfect, perfect. So I feel lucky because I'm sitting with so much knowledge, so much tenured knowledge in the data pulling, data mining, and data storytelling space. So thank you all for providing that. And so to switch to a kind of development aspect and the development piece of that, when you're considering a target consumer, or you're considering an end goal, or you're considering a campaign, what should we be considering when we're going into the data diving and data mining pool? What legal parameters should we be considering? And really talk to me a little bit about, maybe it starts with innovation of an end goal, middle line process, and how we really get to the end use of that data.
Probably, again, we can take the legal aspect out because, again, of who we are and how we got the data. We did not go hire a vendor to bring in our data. So all of our data has pretty well been self-populated. So everybody's aware of what data we have. So thankfully, we don't have to worry about the legal issues. We do have to protect our data to make sure our data is not leaking out to anybody. But as far as when a campaign starts, I usually like to sit down with the person that's in charge of that campaign and kind of visit with them about all the information they need to start with so they know how to plan their solicitation. You know, when I just get a short little email that says, you know, send me an email list, that doesn't cut it. So right away we start asking questions like, what's your message going to be? Are you targeting to a young audience, to an older audience? You know, I start asking those type of questions. And location, geographic, again, are we looking at maybe an event that's happening in Kansas City versus now we're so much in the virtual realm that we're not worrying about geographic as much as we did a year ago. So a lot of questions are asked at the beginning, so that first pass of data that I give them hopefully is giving them everything they want. And sometimes it doesn't, and we have to go back to the drawing board because once they see the data, something else will click in, you know, be triggered, and they'll think, oh, now I want to know this about them. Tell me how many of them are members of the Alumni Association, or tell me how many of them are graduates from the College of Business. maybe something like that will come into play. So we do a lot of strategizing before we get that final data pull then that gives them all the data then that they can start to analyze to make their project very successful.
Absolutely. So it sounds, and what I love, especially for those wondering and interested in that space, is it really takes a team effort in order to data pull and data mine. And so you have that frontline piece where we're receiving the information or the prompt, really. So let me plan out and get with you on what I'm actually pulling. And then we kind of use Crystal's efforts, right, for that data mining piece to say, okay, let me dive in a little bit deeper from that aspect. So Crystal, when you're in that, the muck of data mining, right, you're knee deep in that data. Talk with me a little bit about what that process looks like for you. I know you talked a little bit before about the best real-time data is to give them a call. So after that initial call information, are we tracking that information? How do you ensure that we get to that end state and provide that response to our constituents?
Sure, yes, we have a database that tracks all that information. And so a lot of my job is when we do receive a request from someone to get information, I'll do a pull, I'll look at the data, I'll try to determine, do we have people living at the same address? Are they married now? Are they living with their parents? Do we need to move them? I check social media sites, and maybe they've moved on to another city. And at that time, I reach out to them and remind them of our efforts in other places. We'd rather have their address in Houston instead of tiny town Manhattan or tiny town Kansas, just to make sure that they're aware of what's going on in the big cities, that we have different watch parties and events and things to that sort. And then, yes, of course, reaching out to them and getting that information and getting that ready to go. And then we forward that information on to, whomever's asking for the request once it's been approved.
Absolutely. There's that, and for me within the corporate space, I've experienced that full pipeline. And then there's that end piece, which maybe you all can speak to, and if not, we can move forward. But there's that storytelling piece with data that's so important, right? So I can pull the data, I can mine it, I can do that, but then there's that, what am I actually doing and using that information for, and what story am I looking to tell? So at a high level, would you all be able to talk to the importance of not just, obviously there's power in pulling, there's power in mining, but why that end user storytelling is so important? Because oftentimes I think people assume that we're just pulling the data for us to harbor it, but there's an actual storytelling piece at the end of that. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Something that we're doing right now is, and I believe these maybe started in June, a program called Wildcat Chats. And again, it's some new virtual programming that we're doing. And people, to participate in the Wildcat Chat, they go and fill out a very short form. And one of the questions on the form is, are you an Alumni Association member? So they populate that field with the yes or no. So what we started to do now is, after the event is over, I do a data pull of everybody that participated in the event and how they answered that question. And then I compare it to, are they really a member or not? And then I'm giving that data to our membership director, and she's analyzing that and learning how many people truly know if they're a member of the Alumni Association or not. So again, this is a very good storytelling piece, and it's going to help her realize that she either is doing a good job of letting people know about membership, or how can she improve? How can she make people more aware of their membership status? So that's just something real quick that we've just done lately that I can tell you about how some of our data is being analyzed on our storytelling part.
Yeah, there's so much power in that story piece, especially when we are requesting so much. I work within the human resource space from a day-to-day perspective. So we're always grabbing information. And the question is, what are you doing with it, right? And so that storytelling piece is so important. And that kind of leads me to this next question. I don't know if you have any stories. If not, I can share a couple. But do you have any interesting experiences in the data pulling space or the data mining space where you reached out for information and it was just like this crazy experience or this crazy scenario? I've got a couple locked into my head without mentioning any names, but anything that comes to mind for y'all?
Nothing really jumps out. It's more of, this is part of my favorite job, is being able to provide somebody with data and that light bulb goes off, it's like, oh my gosh, that's just what I've been looking for. And years and years ago, before data was so much on probably even before websites, before we had websites, the College of Vet Med contacted me, and they needed to know who their first woman DVM was. And when we were able to finally find that, that was so, rewarding that we finally could identify that person. And we also did a lot of that work when we were planning the university's 125th anniversary. There were a lot of questions out there. We wanted to know about our earliest graduates, what they were doing now, or what their accomplishments were after their graduation here at K-State. And again, just very rewarding stories came out of that. And for me to be able to, provide the baseline for them to start gathering that information. And now it is all published on websites and stuff. So again, more rewarding than, funny stories or anything like that.
I would say the same thing. We do have a group of alumni that we have coded as lost. We've just done everything in our possible that we could possibly do to track them down, and we just haven't found them. And it is so exciting when one reaches out to us that we've coded as lost, and to be able to put them back in and start communicating with them again. And that's just so neat to be able to say, oh, great, here, let's tell you more.
Yeah, data really does create that pipeline of accountability, right? And the facts that we work with and deal with every day. So it's really cool that not only do you get to be in the process and understanding that, but you get to see the end goal of it. And it's really that light bulb. For us, it's working with our customers, right? Maybe pulling some data on who they thought their consumers were, and then readjusting to fit their actual consumer base. So it's really that same kind of pipeline to say, are we targeting the right consumer base? Am I in the right space? Do people even see us or hear us? And so for those listening, data is not just centered around the business focus. It's not just centered around that singular focus, but it's really understanding how are we showing up, right? And being able to recalibrate within that space. So I always think that's super exciting. When you're thinking of that data process, data pulling, data mining, data storytelling, and those of us entering into the space, whether it's working with the universities or we're working with retailers, what should we be considering in terms of what programs or what processes go into pulling that? Is it simply, I'm going to put this into an Excel, or are we using external data? Kind of talk with me about your process.
Our process is, we use SQL Manager to extract our data from the database. And I always give our data out in an Excel file. And then the end user then is manipulating that Excel file into numerous things. We are in the process of converting our database to a Salesforce platform. So we are very excited to be able to start using new tools for our reports. And we're hoping that these new tools will put, I guess, more, the end user will have more tools at their fingertips, and they won't always have to rely on me to extract the data and give that to them. So they'll have some quick reports that they'll be able to do, and then maybe analyze, and then I'll be able to do just the more difficult things for them, the merging of different tables and stuff. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Awesome. And I think this is a good question to kind of segment into, is you both experienced so much over your careers when it comes to the development of data. As you mentioned before, data that you probably were just able to start to find that on websites. Now you can go there and find whatever you need. And so working within the data space, both experiencing where we were, where we are, where do you see the data space going, specifically for the university, specifically for us, and how do you foresee that shift? I know in my mind, I have a couple of different ideas for the corporate space, but I was always so curious from a collegiate space, where do you see that going and that shifting as you've seen done in the past?
Probably the biggest thing that I hope happens at K-State is that right now we have a lot of silo databases spread out through the entire university. We have a scholarship database. We have a financial aid database. We have where you enroll database. And if we could connect all of those together and make this data seem seamless as a person goes through their career on campus and then after they leave, to me, that would be huge, because right now we're doing data polls to get all that information together into one system, and very time consuming. And we have, you know, errors can be made by merging the wrong data with the wrong record and stuff. So that's where I hope we are in the very near future, is that it's all seamless and sitting on one database as it goes through.
And I would say, as far as the constituents themselves, I think this last 6 months has been an entirely different animal for all of us. I think as far as even geographical, we're seeing such a different view as far as people working from home. And so someone may work for a company that's headquartered in Kansas City, but might be sitting on the beach in North Carolina, and trying to wrap our heads around not being so focused on that location, and maybe looking at continue to look at new ways to communicate to them, you know, knowing that they could be affiliated with an entity in Kansas City, but not sitting in Johnson County anymore, you know. And just, we're even seeing with university staff working virtually in different, we have K-State faculty and staff that are living in different states working, and just trying to, I just think the communication with geographical information is just going to be entirely different moving forward.
I'd be interested to revisit this conversation the middle of 2021, right? When we have kind of passed, we've kind of gotten our feet wet in how we do that, and really to see, has that adjusted the response rate of our alums? You know, are people looking to be more involved, but also has that really increased our inpull of data in terms of where people are located, where people are moving, their ability to share that information? I think it's really interesting is, as we've left offices and worked from home, we're willing to probably share a little bit more in terms of making sure that we're connected, right? So I would love to revisit that to see, I wonder if there's probably just an influx of information where people are updating, people are wanting to remain connected, especially in times where we can't physically be around people. Data is that centralized source that can keep us all connected. And so with that, I want to end our conversation here with any advice that you have for people either within the data space, either interested in coming into the realm in terms of navigating this space, being able to cultivate this space and being successful. As I mentioned, you both have had amazing careers in this space and have been able to see it grow and change and shift. And so any advice for our alums that are looking to take hold of data and use that to shift and change the future?
I have two pieces of advice. One is, collect as much data as you can. Always think farther than what you think you're going to need, and make, you know, keep your data in very clean entities so they can be grabbed and intermingled with other data. And my second word of advice is, do follow your privacy procedures. And I do get challenged very often on releasing information outside of the university realm. And we just have to stand firm that our data is only to promote the university, and so people have faith. And so when they do give us, they know we're being due diligent with their privacy. So those are my two words of advice.
And I just continue to ask people to come to our website and update their information, k-state.com/update your info. Please come and update your information with us, and so that we can keep in touch with you.
Absolutely. Two beautiful keys of advice: understanding where your data is going, understanding the importance of keeping that sacred, building that trust with our people, our consumer bases, and actually updating that data. Yes. We can't continue to serve our people if we have outdated information, if we're not sending the right notes or understanding what our consumer base is. So understand that though it's a lot of our job, team members that are listening, it's a lot of your job as well to assist us in this process to ensure that we are getting you the information that you need and that the information that we have is correct and up to date. But I want to thank you both for jumping in on a call with me and sharing your perspective from a collegiate space, especially for a lot of us who spent a lot of our time on the campuses of Kansas State University,
Right.
and have participated in surveys, have participated in calls, have been able to give back to the university, and are just wanting to understand a little bit deeper about what that looks like and where that goes. So I thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
Any
thank
last
you.
minute points or questions that you want to go over here?
Thank you for the opportunity. We were good.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think we're good.